I took the janitor job in Claremont High because it was promised to be quiet, steady work. I liked the night shift, the stillness, the routine. I'd clock in just after sundown, make my rounds to the halls and classrooms, maybe listen to a podcast while I swept the cafeteria. No kids, no teachers, no drama. Just me, the echo of my footsteps, and the low hum of old, fluorescent lights. Most of the school was a tomb after hours, literally dead silent, but there was one room that never quite felt settled. The lost and found. Technically, it was just a side room off the gym, part storage, part dump zone for whatever kids left behind. I passed by it every night, and for the first few weeks, it was exactly what you'd expect. Jackets, notebooks, a single worn-out sneaker with no pair, nothing strange. But then, things started turning up that didn't belong. A navy blue hoodie with a crest I didn't recognize, though it did look like an altered version of our school's logo. A set of keys on a lanyard labeled Room 212, even though Claremont didn't number its rooms like that. A class photo, glossy, official looking, with students I'd never seen before. The year on the bottom read 2009, which would have made sense, except the school didn't open until 2012. At first, I figured it was some leftover junk from the previous building, or a harmless prank the kids were trying to pull on the new janitor, but the stuff kept showing up, more and more. Every night I checked the lost and found, there'd be something new sitting on the shelf, items that somehow looked familiar but felt off. Things with slightly altered logos, textbooks belonging to students that didn't exist. I checked. A Polaroid from the roof, except the skyline was wrong, the city around the school didn't match, and the weirdest part, no one ever came to claim any of these items. I thought about saying something. I really did. I almost brought the Polaroid to the principal's office. But what would I say? Hey, this photo doesn't seem to represent reality. I imagined the look I'd get. Polite concern. Maybe a note in my file. I'd seen guys let go for less. So, I kept my mouth shut, kept doing my jobs without saying anything. Still, after the fifth item that made my skin crawl, I had to tell someone. So I mentioned it to Mr. Hargrove, the security guard that worked mornings. He just laughed and shrugged it off. "Kids are weird," he told me. "They're probably just trading stuff with friends at other schools." I told him Claremont didn't have any sister schools, but he ignored me and went back to watching the security cameras. That was the end of that, and the items kept coming. Some mundane, pencil cases, notebooks, scarves, but they always felt off. I can't really explain it, just a feeling I had about them. And there was even a laminated ID listing Mr. Kowalski as vice principal. We didn't have a Mr. Kowalski. And that's when I started going down a rabbit hole. I was never much of a spiritual person, never thought about the paranormal. But this, in my mind, could only be explained with the existence of a different Claremont, one that was bleeding into ours. That's when I really started watching it. I'd sweep faster, even cut corners just so I could spend more time in that room. Some nights, I'd sit there for hours, just staring at the unnatural items, trying to piece together a rational explanation to it all, and failing to do so. Things didn't just appear. They'd be there when I arrived, like someone had set them down moments before, always freshly placed, never dusty. One night the room was colder than usual. I mean, like I was standing in front of an open freezer. The air stung my throat when I breathed in. I opened the door, and there it was, a mirror, full length, leaning against the back wall. I hadn't seen it the night before, and it was the biggest item of the bunch. Old, with a brass frame, foggy glass, the kind you'd find at an antique store, and one that you would never buy unless you wanted your house to be haunted. I didn't like the way it reflected the room. It seemed delayed, like the light took just a half-second too long to bounce back. I leaned in, and I swear to God, for just a moment, I didn't see myself. I mean, I guess it was me, but it looked like me. Same uniform, same face, but his badge was distorted, unnatural, just like the crest on the hoodie. He was smiling just a little bit too much. I blinked and it was gone. Stumbling back, I knocked over a box full of items and left the room without cleaning up. I didn't sleep well that night. Well, for multiple nights afterward. Kept dreaming about the mirror. Not about what I saw, but that I was inside it. Locked behind the glass, pounding at the surface while something, in my skin walked freely through the school. And still, I didn't quit. I documented. I kept a notebook in my pocket, used it to log anything new that had no logical origin. After a week, I had about 30 entries, scarves, empty bags, 2 cell phones, both bricked, no SIM cards, and a yearbook. A yearbook. The school photo on the front was Claremont, but it was wrong. The angles were off, the front sign written in a font we don't use, and when I flipped it open, it only got worse. No one I recognized. Not a single name. Teachers I'd never heard of, students with faces that almost looked familiar but weren't, and page after page of clubs that didn't exist. The worst part was finding a photo of myself, standing beside a girl I didn't know. I was a single connecting link between the 2 schools, but my name was wrong by a single letter. Dawn instead of Dan. It didn't feel like a typo, it felt like a copy. I wanted to throw the mirror out, smash it, burn it, anything, but I didn't. Curiosity is a hell of a thing, especially when soaked in fear. Next evening, after the halls cleared and the last teacher had left, I grabbed a flashlight and locked myself inside the room. I waited a while, just listening to any sounds I might hear, the hum of the hallway lights beyond the door, the faint tick of an old wall clock. I stood in front of the mirror, heart beating faster than I'd like to admit, and raised the flashlight. No delay, doppelganger, or anything out of the ordinary, just me, tired and pale and staring a bit too hard. I moved the beam around the edge of the frame. It was dusty, thick with spider webs, a bit corroded in places. Strange, I thought. Nothing else shows signs of age. I placed my palm against the glass, which I regretted instantly. It was cold, then it rippled. Not much, just the faintest quiver, like disturbed water. I didn't have time to react. It started pulling. I felt my hands slowly but firmly sink in. I yanked back, but it was too late. The mirror grabbed me. It dragged me forward, and I fell through. No wind, no impact, just an instant drop into somewhere else. It was the same school, same room, but it wasn't. The lighting was wrong, too dim but not flickering enough. The lockers were the same layout, but the numbers didn't make sense. 107 was next to 33B. The paint was peeling where it hadn't been yesterday, and worst of all, the silence. Not just quiet, but wrong, like sound didn't belong there. This was it, the other school, the one that, from my understanding, was trying to mimic what our school looked like, what it felt like, but it couldn't, not perfectly. The floor should have squeaked under my boots, but there was no sound. Everything looked the same, but slightly wrong. Skewed angles, doorways that were either too small or too narrow. The trophy case by the gym was filled with awards that didn't exist. I turned a corner and froze. There was someone down the hall. Not a student, not a teacher. He was tall, too tall, in a way that made my stomach twist. His head was slightly tilted and he was holding a clipboard in one hand, a mop in the other. I ducked into a classroom, one I knew should have been the art room. There were hundreds of drawings covering the walls, all of them of the real, original school. All of them showed me. From behind, from above, in classrooms as I was cleaning. Another had me standing outside the lost and found room, just before I touched the mirror. That's when I heard the footsteps. Slow, echoing throughout the building. The door creaked open, finally, sound, and the tall man entered. He didn't speak. He just stood there, waiting. He looked like me, same stance, almost matching uniforms. His nameplate was warped, melted looking, as if the metal had been twisted. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was mine, but too metallic, if that makes sense. This school already has someone like you. I stepped back, and he didn't follow at first. Instead, he tilted his head further until it was nearly horizontal. The clipboard slipped from his hand and hit the ground with a wet thump, not the sound real plastic and paper should make. He raised the mop and tapped it against the wall 3 times, each making a louder and louder bang. A low moan, distant, maybe from below the floor or on the other side of the school. It wasn't a human sound either, or it didn't sound like one. Without a second thought, I bolted right past the thing still standing like a broken mannequin. I didn't want to see if he came after me, I just ran. I had to go back, I couldn't stay here anymore, it was too dangerous, I told myself. The school warped as I moved, halls stretched and folded, lockers bent inward, entire door frames twisted like they were on fire. I even passed room 212, the one from the lanyard, and it was wide open. Inside was a spiral staircase descending into darkness, something red flickering at the bottom, eyeing me. That wasn't there before, not in my school. I remember the layout back to the lost and found room, but everything was being contorted. Once I reached the gym, my eyes were locked on the door. I jumped and barreled through it. Inside, the mirror. I didn't think, I ran for it, and the mirror didn't resist. The world twisted again. I landed on concrete, or something like it. The walls were the same as my school, but the edges were too soft, the colors off by a shade. There was no ceiling, just a flat, endless gray sky, and across the room stood me. At first, I thought it was a mirror again, a trick, but it wasn't copying my movements. He stood calmly, his hands behind his back, and an almost reassuring smile on his face. "You weren't supposed to come back," he said. "You were meant to forget." I backed away. "What is this? Who are you?" He stepped forward. "I'm the version that stayed, the one that understood. The keeper doesn't punish. He preserves, replaces, thrives. You're not me." He gave a small, regretful smile. "Not anymore." The copy, the keeper, stepped aside. "You were the last variable, the real you. But now you're contaminated. You've seen both worlds, and yet..." He paused, carefully choosing the words meant to cut me deepest. "You don't belong in either." I looked past him. Behind the keeper was the mirror I came through, still intact, but it shimmered differently. It was wild, unpredictable, flashing images of my school and something much worse. I understood. They weren't trying to trap me or harm me, but overwrite, replace me. "Now you'll be stuck here," the keeper said, almost with pity. "In nothingness, oblivion. Not a great fate, I must admit." My eyes darted between the copy and the mirror, trying to mentally map out my next move. I ran for it. With the keeper's back turned, this was my best chance. I ran, not to escape, but to shatter it. My reflection in the mirror delayed, trying to stop me, but it was too late. I jumped against the frame of it to snap it in half. The mirror shattered. Sound vanished. A deafening silence. The keeper shrieked, not through ears, but inside my bones, before breaking apart like a bad transmission. The room began to bleed light from its corners, the gray sky turning blindingly white. I didn't wait to see what came next. I stumbled through a hallway that shouldn't exist, past doors that led nowhere, through walls that crumpled behind me as I moved. I ran until there was nothing left to run from. When I woke, I was yet again inside the lost and found room, surrounded by dozens of items that were normal, ordinary, and ones that belonged. The mirror was gone, everything was normal again, and no one remembers anything strange. But I still check the hallways every night, just in case. And sometimes, when the lights flicker, I hear footsteps, and the air turns cold, unnaturally cold. That is the last short one that I have on the list. I read it because, again, I finished The Mailman last week, a couple days ago, and I just need a slight break. So, yeah, everything else going forward should be in the 30 to 40 minute range, hopefully. and then I'll do the 1 hour long ones, and I have one that will be nearly 2 hours. I'll do those in a couple weeks. So yeah, sorry for these couple short ones. This was still good story. The writing was great. Reading it was super duper easy. I messed up 3-4 times. It was actually really impressive how little I messed up. I really liked how this one was written. So yeah, that's always great for me in terms of editing. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this story. For the few people that listen, since not many people click on the shorter stories, longer ones to come. Thank you for supporting regardless. I will see you in the next one. Ego Volt Anima Vestra.